In this video, we're going to look at one of the foremost components in finding errors, which is word class. Now, what is this word class? Word class is nothing but parts of speech, how one word takes up different forms in a context. What do I mean by that? Let's take the word inform, right? So, the action word, the verb, let me give you an example. If I say, I have been informed of the change in schedule, in that context, inform is the action word, the verb. But if I say, have you seen the information on the notice board? So there inform becomes information, acting like a noun. Have you seen the what? Information. Or if I say this session is informative or this book is informative, there inform becomes informative, describing the session or the book, acting like an adjective. And then of course you have informedly, the adverb form, usually identified by the suffix ly. So you see how one word has different forms. So knowledge on this is critical because that will help us identify errors pertaining to word class. Let's take a look at some example sentences. The first example is, we had extensively discussions with the participants and obtained their feedback regarding our new services. Alright, so like I said, we're going to approach this looking part by part and understanding what are these little parts of the sentence, these words, and what meaning are they trying to convey. So let's look at our first part. We have extensively discussions. Now in that part, can you identify the noun? We had extensively discussions. What is the noun in that? Correct. We understand it's discussions, right? Most of my noun forms end with IONS, MENT, TY, ION, TION, right? So it's easy for me to figure out the noun, discussions. Okay. Now what is this word in front of discussions? Extensively. I know the form tells me it's an adverb because it ends with ly, right? But this word is only acting as additional information about the discussions. It's giving me information about what sort of discussions. And I already know that all my describing words are adjectives. So how do I change this extensively, which is an adverb form, to an adjective form? Simple. I go ahead and delete the ly. So there you go. We had extensive discussions with the participants and obtained their feedback regarding our new services. So this becomes the changed sentence, the corrected sentence, where we've gone ahead and changed the adverb, which is not required in this context, changed it to an adjective form, which is exactly what we need, modifying or describing the noun discussions. So the error for us here is in part 1. Let's move to our second example. Example 2. Building biogas plants help to reduce the consuming of conventional fuels such as firewood and kerosene. Alright. So again, let's apply the same strategy. We go part by part. Building biogas plants. Again, building, verb plus ing is a gerund. It's functioning like a noun. Building biogas plants help to reduce what? The consuming. Another tip to identify nouns is your articles, your definite article and your indefinite article. Usually, articles precede the nouns, making reference to the nouns, right? A boy walked into the room. The boy was wearing, or the boy was wearing a blue shirt. Now in that example sentence, a boy, so it could be any boy, right? An indefinite number, not being specific. But in the second sentence, I said the boy was wearing a blue shirt. So I'm making reference to the same boy, but I'm being more specific. So we understand what the difference between indefinite and definite articles. But in this context, I'm saying usually articles precede noun forms. But after the, I have consuming, which is a verb form, right? A continuous tense verb form, consuming with an ing. How do I change this to a noun form? So if I take the base verb consume, consumed, consuming, if I take the base verb consume, which is the first verb, how do I change that to a noun form? Pretty simple. Let's go ahead and do that. Consumption, right? So that's our corrected version right there. Building biogas plants help to reduce what? Help to reduce the consumption of conventional fuels such as firewood and kerosene. So the error is in part 3 for example 2. So do you realize how we've applied how to identify which form is required in a sentence? Do I need an adjective form? Do I need an adverb form? Or do I need a noun form? Or simply the verb itself will suffice to complete the sentence meaningfully and grammatically? Let's look at one more example to identify word class. Also, please be aware that the various forms. In these two examples, what we saw is a sentence divided into 4 parts. But there are other variations where a couple of words are highlighted in the sentence, wherein we are required to substitute them from the given options. So that's what we're going to look at next in our third example. So example 3, aerobics is found to be of extremely helpful to diabetic patients. So the phrase highlighted is extremely helpful. And let's look at our options. Option A, extremely helpful. Option B, of extreme help. Option C, of extremely helpful. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I think only A is correct, I'm going to click, or I'm going to select 1. If I think only option B is correct, I will select 2. If I think only C is correct, I will select option 3. Or if I think either A or B will fit in this context, I will select option 4. But if I feel the highlighted phrase in the sentence is grammatically correct as it is and no correction is required, then I will select option 5. But let's fall back on our sentence and understand the meaning that it's conveying. Aerobics is found to be of what to diabetic patients? Here again, another tip for you to identify the noun form. It answers the question what, right? So in this context, we've looked at 3 things when we were approaching word class, especially pertaining to nouns. We said, how do I identify nouns? Usually nouns end with T-I-O-N, S-I-O-N, T-Y, M-E-N-T, E-N-C-E. Also, we said articles precede the nouns. The third thing that we looked at is it answers the question what, right? So if I look at my options, extremely I know is an adverb form. Helpful I know is an adjective form. How do I know that? ly suffix. Helpful, help would be the noun form. He is helpful. I received help from so and so person. I received what? Noun form, help. That person was very helpful. Helpful describing that person, adjective. But we already made it clear that we need a noun form in this context. Aerobics is found to be of what to diabetic patients? Of which is the option that is giving me the noun form? Option B. I have of extreme help, right? So extreme here is the adjective describing the noun form help. So having gone through these example sentences, I'm positive you not only know the different forms that a word can have. We've only looked at a couple of words, so that's something that you have to expand your knowledge on, and also be able to identify which form we need in the context based on the meaning that it conveys. So some of the tips that we looked at is, for example, to identify a noun is, does it answer the question what? And what are the usual suffixes that we are familiar with when it comes to noun? Then we had the articles preceding the noun. Likewise, for a verb, sometimes you have the helping verb preceding it, right? And if it requires a descriptive word, I know I need an adjective in that context. And of course, something that modifies or goes ahead and gives me additional information about the verb, I need an adverb, right? So keep practicing. Let's move to our next component in finding errors.